Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It is another epi of League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys for a little bit later weekend recap. And there was a lot to get to, even with the LPL not being on the Rift, and we predicted a prophetic upset over the weekend and misread the crystal ball a little. It was 24 hours off the Gen G D Plus series. No, that wasn't it. It was BNK. It was the Foxes. Favourites coming up massive against T1, and I know T1 has the massive fan base. Everyone, it's always T1, they threw it, they choked the draft, everyone underperforming, blah blah blah. Sure, no question they weren't 100% on the day, but please put some respect on BNK Favourites, who showed no fear going up against T1 in a best of 5, punched them in the mouth, and didn't slow down the whole series.
There's legitimate reasons to talk about the issues or complaints that you would have, criticisms towards T1's performance within that series against BNK, but they're all just as legitimate as BNK's power level was in that series and how tenacious they were throughout it all and fearless against this squad that has the prestige, has the history, and all these trophies built up behind them. BNK says, we don't care about any of that. We're here to play some League of Legends. And right now, we're pretty good at playing League of Legends.
I feel like both of these squads, and maybe this is just a bigger look at the meta as a whole, it's protect the 80 carry, right? Protect the VIP, play a whole comp around them. Even though Paze was like 1-5 on Jake's, they still doubled down to get him double-digit kills, and he was this was far and away Paze's worst series since his very early times on T1 still, but BNK knows how to play around Diablo like no other team right now knows how to play around an 80 carry. Kellen is like he's got a leash around him, just following him. Whatever play Diablo does, Kellen is right there beside him, and that's just, again, probably a testament to this young talent they have in the bot lane.
And this was so exciting for so many reasons, watching this series, but seeing that, everything was going right. And, again, of course, you have that first game where it is really mostly about the mistakes, mispositioning from Paze that lead to so many advantages gained on the BNK side. You go to game 2, and this is one of those ones where it felt like this could have been the turning point in the series, with T1 getting the win here, equaling it up and everything else. But within that game was everybody on BNK, and specifically, look at the top side, huge advantages for Clear. It was Diablo that fell behind, that made the crucial mistakes in that game that let T1 get their control, get the advantages, and ultimately tie the series up. So that was my crucial point with him being obviously this young hyperstar that we always talk about, and all the pressure, everything like that. How would you respond when everyone else's gameplay seems to have lifted up, and now you're the piece that needs to find yourself, contribute within the middle of this T1 series? And yes, the bounce backs throughout games 3 and 4 are there. Very much so. Thrilled from everything in this BNK team.
Yeah, I think top to bot, you can have different highlights for every member of BNK. Raptor had some fantastic invades. Vikla had some whiffs, but then he also had some insane engages. He's solo killing Faker. There were pretty much every lane got a solo kill at some point for BNK in this series, and sometimes multiple times. So, Gen G and T1 both were looking unstoppable. We talked about multiple times, can anyone really take a series from either of them unless it's against each other? The answer was probably not, but here we are, the very first series that T1 has, and historically, when they have that buffer of still going to the losers bracket, we don't see them fully locked in. But so good for the LCK, and so scary for squads like Hanwha and D+. If we see continued growth for BNK throughout the year, and if they're at this level consistently, yikes.
And again, I'm not feeling, crazy about this, but you look at what BNK was doing last year towards the end of the year, throughout summer, the rise of Diablo and how he was doing in the bottom lane. You can go to one of those crucial moments being where they took down T1 within that split. And I think that this is, again, a continuation born from that, where, yes, of course, Diablo is a contributing member, but as you went through, Vikla held his own in that mid lane against Faker, and this was out of all the performances when you looked at T1 throughout the series, Faker was the one that was the most locked in on the day and trying his darndest to try and make sure that it is T1 getting advantages and trying to find a way back in the series. Vikla held his own, didn't give up too much in that mid lane. As you said, Raptor was a menace in the jungle all over the place. I think, again, as much as I want to talk about Diable in the bottom lane, you got to give part of that credit, part of that equation over to Kellen and the fantastic plays and engages that he was setting up for his teammates. And as well, Clear, an absolute masterclass in that top side, dismantling Doran, frankly, to a degree that I don't know if we've really seen out of Doran on this T1 roster, where we have seen mostly good performances, but there have been a dud or lackluster here or there. This one seemed really bad on the side of Doran and really, really good on the side of Clear.
And, even in this big extended bracket, all it takes is one upset like this, and BNK have booked their ticket to at least finals weekend, which will be in Hong Kong for Split 1, and now one best of away from representing at first stand. It'll, again, probably have to be a win against either Gen G or T1 again to qualify for it. So still a long road, but at the bare minimum, getting this finals weekend appearance for this squad is gonna make them only better later on, and I'm excited. This is maybe the most exciting team in terms of playstyle that there is in the LCK right now.
I think, again, this could be thrown towards a DK, someone else really rising outside of what is the expected T1, Gen G, and where we think Hanwha Life will be at some point this year. Having BNK jump into that mix, again, the young star in Diablo, and then the other players around him, there is no question that it is a very exciting moment to have BNK get this opportunity in Hong Kong. But I don't want to let that not be the focus, because it's a wonderful, it's going to be a fun trip. Pack your suitcases, let's go out for dinner, all that fun stuff. But let's make sure that we keep our eyes on the prize. And that prize is not the LCK Cup. That prize is your ticket, is your attendance and invitation to first stand, to continue to improve, to get international stage exposure, all sorts of things that come with it. That has to be the goal, and I think that starts with your series against Gen G. That has to be the focus, the preparation. Yes, you could make all sorts of talk about you're going to have maybe that eventual rematch with T1 if, things work out where you lose to a Gen G and T1 rises up through the lower bracket. And you can talk about that, sure. But really, that first focus needs to be on what you do in that series against Gen G and doing everything you can to take that first opportunity to lock down your spot in first stand.
And after this series, I guarantee you, Gen G ain't going to be taking them lightly. They'll be watching this VOD going, okay, these guys are legit, and we got to, come in having a good day on the Rift to make sure that they can come away with that series win. I'll tell you a squad that had a very good day on the Rift over the weekend. We got the rematch, Cloud9 versus FlyQuest. We said, okay, how does FlyQuest adapt to that last close series? Well, they don't adapt, and Cloud9 only fine-tunes things even more, as we had a pair of 25-minute games, and every game was a 10K gold lead at some point for Cloud9 as they completely dismiss FlyQuest in 3 games.
I think this is very much so the sign of some of that inexperience, some of that green on FlyQuest in this type of regard of, not just the level up into a series, the pressure, the situation that it would all be and everything else, more so the recency, how soon it is that you had this matchup last time around, and the adjustments that the individual players, not just the coaching staff, can make to their own game plan and how they approach certain situations within it. You saw that all across the board, all 5 positions in this Cloud9 team, of how much more so they were prepared and locked in specifically on this FlyQuest opponent, and how they wanted to change things around that allowed FlyQuest to be more even the other time around. So having that change for Cloud9 and seeing that enacted on Summoner's Rift was a very fun time for them.
First best of 5, obviously, of the split for these guys, and we can add the Galio pick into the pocket for APA in terms of champion pool. Looked pretty good on that, but this series was absolutely a blabber difference, and this guy, the start to the split, best form he's been in what? I'm going to say 5 years minimum, probably?
And that's very significant because whatever, evaluations you want to make about this Cloud9 team, and we all knew heading into it, there was going to be various degrees of that evaluation that you needed to make before you could slap on the good. And not just good for the LCS, I mean good and ready to put that good up to the test around everyone else on the international level is what Cloud9 is showing you so far. And having a blabber that is the blabber that has built his name in North America like this and is the blabber that you want to represent you on the international stage, yeah, that's pretty darn exciting if you're a Cloud9 fan.
And, I mean, you can extend that a little bit to Sven and Vulcan kind of being in forms we haven't seen, maybe not 5 years out of them, but at least the last couple years it hasn't been that form. And Thanatos continues to be an absolute lane kingdom storm. Cloud9, whatever you can give credit to the coaching staff, the comms, like the playing around the map smarter than we've seen, again, Blabber and the rest of these guys do in years. So feeling very good about Cloud9. And even as you look further in the LCS, we're used to the middle tier teams. You see a playoff series, you go, oh, that was a fun fiesta. The LCS, what a fun little region. But even DSG and Sentinels going 5 games, we get a banger of a series. And I don't mean that ironically. This was actually high quality gameplay, and you're going, this is back and forth. It's actually exciting, and you feel good about these squads even.
I think part of it is having zero expectations. I don't think anybody had any expectations on that other match and how it was going to deliver. Man, yeah, my socks were blown off too. That was a heck of a series, and what a fun time watching that one in the LCS. And I think, again, really good signs seen from both sides within that series, which is the more exciting and interesting option when you are looking at the LCS and what you have to talk about, what you can look at within the region. Having Disguise with some of these young rookies be able to show up, having Sentinels show some of that tenacity and some of that playoff wildiness that we thought would be there with some of the veterans on that lineup. That is the exciting part that you wanted to see from this matchup. And again, it delivered for not just 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 games.
Yeah, like Kryra, Sajet, you could throw in Darkwings in that same category. These guys, they don't look like young players. They look comfortable, not shying away from the moment. Kryra's, this is like his second series he's actually played in the LCS, and it shows absolutely no signs of that. And now, in that losers bracket, matching up against, Team Liquid and Lion, FlyQuest and DSG are both going to be, I think, underdogs in those matchups on paper, but it's not a huge shock to me if at least FlyQuest comes away with the win against Lion. They'll just be happy to play anybody that's not Cloud9.
Yeah, that for certain, but it's nowhere near one of these matchups where you're looking at it that it outweighs you so much that the adjustments and lessons that you can take away from just this past weekend and the experiences that you had should be more than enough to be retooled and throw down and take your best shot to keep moving on within the LCS. So I think all things considered, and again, being relatively on the positive side of things usually, but seeing things in the LCS and how things have played out so far, I'm very happy with where we are at and where we are going with the rest of these playoffs.
This is kind of what you imagined when the league went down to 8 teams. You felt, well, okay, then the overall power level of the league should be raised up, right? If you're removing 10 players, it should be more talented.
Took a while.
It took a little while. But here we are. They needed to do like the full reset of getting rid of LCS and bringing it back, because then it's, feels so fresh and new all of a sudden.
That's what the LTA was all about,
genius
right?
Move. We were just a few steps behind, that's all.
The long con all the way around. I see. Anyway, we slice it. I'm feeling good about the LCS playoffs and the way that things are shaping up. And I think everybody else should be looking at it as a more exciting, more thrilling meal to sit down and dive into on your weekends.
I'm feeling a little less good about the LEC after the weekend. And that's not necessarily because of the quality of the product on the Rift. It's because of the sour note that the MKOI Vitality Series ended in. At 50-plus minute, insane back and forth game, but of course, most people talking about the chrono break that happened, because this is kind of what flipped the entire game on its head. You go from pre-chrono break to, I believe it's a 2 or 3 for 1 for Vitality, and one guy goes down, and then the chrono break happens. Jojo Pion, he gets canceled to Talia bug. That's a pretty known bug, I think, that Riot should have. And then it goes from a 1-0 for MKOI, because Mirwin knows how to play this fight better, because he already got to play it once and immediately ultis on the Zahen to get out. He doesn't get caught out. Jojo Pion gets there earlier. You feel a little bad for Vitality on this one.
Well, flat out, number one, that Talia bug is months old, if not year plus old type of situation. So certainly, yes, a very well-known one, and one of these situations where that chrono break is nasty. The position where it happens within this game and where you come out with on the other side of it and what you can then readjust for is completely unfair. It changes the integrity of that match, and that is something that nobody, again, Movistar Koi fans, anyone else, Vitality fan, they don't want to see that go down in your matches. So I think that is absolutely where that sour taste comes in. And I think that it's one of those ones where, again, with a chrono break, it's going to be an artificial flavor to the series, to the game. Artificial flavoring, sometimes you get it right. You get the right chemical mixture, whatever. Your tongue doesn't know the difference. It tells you that tastes like a strawberry. All good. But then you get one little molecule wrong, right? You get the situation, the application wrong, and there it is. There's that aftertaste. There's this, what is that? That's wonky. That's how you're feeling about this series now, where you're not even talking about where this means for Movistar Koi moving forward and Vitality. You're not talking about that. You're talking about the chrono break and its application and what it meant afterwards. Unacceptable.
It was getting a earwax flavored Bernie beans from Harry Potter when that happened, because it was going so well. The game was so exciting, and there's still some great back and forth after that. But I'm not sure if Jojo Pion getting to this fight a little quicker because he doesn't jump off the wall the first time, I don't think it has as big an impact as Mirwin knowing he just needs to run and not face checking, right?
Yeah, having that type of knowledge, right, of the situation, awareness of all these things is exactly what Chrono Break is not supposed to be affecting, not supposed to be allowing to be one of these possibilities. And out of all the things that it affected and is changed by, the Talia bug is the least of the things that was noticeable going on in there in that situation. So yeah, that is where I think, again, you're finding such outrage, such criticism for this moment, this application of the Chrono Break within the LEC. And, normally I try to find all sorts of angles, and I'm very, Riot positive and but no. This is absolutely bad.
And I think the other reason this is still kind of the main topic after the weekend of the LEC, Monday, Tuesday matches, excuse me. But it's because everything else was kind of business as usual. We had, the upstart young gun 7th-seeded G2 coming away with a huge upset against Team Heretics. So, right, it's just G2 activating for playoffs and kind of stopping their way 2-0. Claps shows up, and, that's the G2 we're waiting to see. There they are.
Yeah. Not much criticism for the LEC for that in regards. That's just simply an unfortunate situation.
That's what best of ones get you, is the reality.
I think that is absolutely probably the more fair take on this one, and really gets to the core of the issue that we have seen with the LEC this split around. But at the end of the day, G2 does continue things, moves on, and kind of rights the ship more or less compared to the narrative that maybe was around them given their position heading towards playoffs.
And, we were given this version of Fnatic over Los Bretones matching up. Povey, I think, got a little bit of revenge against Fnatic, as Na'Vi, maybe we were worried they were going to bow out or not be at the same level in playoffs, but they dismantled Fnatic. You combine this with, Grabs talking, doing interviews off, saying there's hardly any support staff, when there's their 2 coaches doing the whole thing, one of them gets sick. There's no resources being funneled into Fnatic. That combined with the rumors that they're maybe looking to sell their spot, and we're approaching rock bottom for Fnatic right now. If they lose to Vitality in the losers bracket, pretty close to rock bottom.
It is getting very, very sad because the name of an organization like TSM comes to
Ooh,
mind when
you
you
never want to
start
be in
here.
that conversation.
No, for a lot of angles, you do not want to be in that conversation, and this is only in the negative light that you are being associated with that, with the conversations around stuff going on with management and everything else. And all I can think of is, man, what do they have? There must be something different. Must be a special chair that they wheel in for the team when they play. That's specifically for the mid laners on Fnatic, and I think it's lined with thumbtacks. Is what you're sitting on because it's just such an uncomfortable situation. And when you leave, everybody seems happier and better and more comfortable playing the game. Prime example, Mr. Poby, and how everything has gone with Navi. And I think this was relatively predictable, knowing A, the individual player in Poby, and B, then the organization and Fnatic and how things played out. But yes, it is wonderful seeing him have such a fun time with this Navi squad and really being such a key part of what is going right for them.
And how about it? Again, the dark timeline for Fnatic. First, you have Poby send you to the losers bracket. Potentially have Humanoid sending you home, just going through the gauntlet of mid laners you got rid of, destroying you.
And you talk about Poby looking like, okay, he's off of the thumbtack chair. If there's a guy who's absolutely off the thumbtack chair, it is Humanoid and the vibes and everything else around Vitality. So yeah, I think it is danger alarm is 6. We've gone up, we've broken the scale. No longer is 5. You're breaking new levels here when you're talking about how scared you are about what's going on with Fnatic.
And you're scared to match up against KC as well, even though they maybe didn't have the cleanest 2-0 of these favorites. They needed a Yucky Baron steal in game 2 to get it done, but they were still very much in control and felt like they were basically warming up, stretching to get their way past Giant X again in 2-0 fashion. But they're going to remain favorites probably in this playoff run until, they have a heavy hitter matchup against G2 or somebody else. But mainly, aside from the Chronobreak, business as usual to kick off playoffs in the LEC. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, absolute stunners. Thanks for hanging out as always, and we will catch you on that flippity flip.